Welcome to WAY2B TV, where there's a better way to be than atheist or theist. You know, we're in our 113 or our number 13 show. It's show number 113. That's our 13th show, and I'm feeling very enthused. Now, I know we have a fairly short crew on the chat room and so forth, and we have, not as many listeners and viewers as we wish we had. But I'm feeling fairly certain it's going to be that way. It's going to be that way for a while, but I think we're going to wind up with maybe 50 or 60 or 100 by the end of the year or the first quarter of next year, and we just keep working at it and get busy on the chat, on the blogs and on the social network and all that kind of stuff. I'm excited about it, and I wish you all could be just as excited about it as I am, and use the social media posts that are at the top of the emails and post it on your own Facebook pages and your own Twitter's accounts and LinkedIn or Pinterest or anywhere that you have, Instagram, anywhere you happen to be on the social networking. Use it as much as you can, and try to promote people watching the show. I see we have Colleen on there, and Jan and Mary and Amber. Haven't seen Carol yet tonight. Maybe she'll show up in a minute. She's usually late anyway. But we had a little bit of panic right before the show. I mean, I was having all kind of latency issues and all kinds of stuff, and just hustling around here trying to get it to work, and literally managed to launch the pre-show at exactly 30 minutes before time to start. And so, at any rate, you never know what's going to happen with this. Last Friday, YouTube had a major problem, and Warcast tells me that they got over 1,000 help tickets because all of a sudden nobody could log into their shows. They couldn't log into the ones they had scheduled coming up. They couldn't hook onto YouTube because the YouTube app went crazy on them. They made some changes, and YouTube is adding some new features that look like they're going to be pretty neat features, but something wasn't handled completely as it should be in the process. And so YouTube got over 1,000 help tickets, and had a hard time with it. I called them myself. Also discovered why Twitter doesn't wrap for some people, and apparently Twitter wraps just fine if you tweet on Twitter, and if you tweet on most Twitter apps, it tweets just right. But some Twitter apps on some phones, some iPads, some computers, some Twitter apps don't tweet just right, and they don't wrap into that second line. And posting videos from YouTube is one of those things. Also, the social media links on YouTube and on some other things don't necessarily hook into Twitter's API since they changed it. Because here about 6 months ago, the whole thing shut down on us, and a bunch of us called Warcast and discovered that Twitter had changed their API and the way you hook on to Twitter, and so we had to get upgrades to our software before we could use Twitter again. And so there's always problems. Broadcasting is a very sensitive subject, and everything has to be just perfect, or it doesn't work. It doesn't stream, and it doesn't do the things that it's supposed to do. So I say again to you, welcome to WAY2B TV, where there's a better way to be than atheist or theist. I got my cowboy hat on tonight, and I've got my office chair instead of that big recliner chair, and we're going to try this for a while. I kind of like the hat, and I think the hat is a good trademark. I wear the hat here in Lakeland a lot, every day sometime during the day. When I go walking the dog in the afternoons, everybody knows me and the dog in this hat. And so that's all, that's all cool. And I like wearing the hat. It's a really good, as most everybody knows that has to fix their hair and their makeup and all that. A hat is good for a bad hair day, and it's good for days when you're just lazy and you're wanting to go eat a bite to eat, or go through a drive-through, or go to the grocery store for something, or whatever. You just hate to go into a major project before you do that, and so hats are pretty handy. My daughter has a room and a whole wall full of hats. Let me turn Joni on here. She might want to say something. Can you hear us, Joni?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can. Let me turn you up a little bit. Yeah, I was telling him about Melody's hat wall and all those hats that she has in her house. She wears a lot of hats.
She uses it for sun protection.
Yeah, she uses it for sun protection. Let me turn up a little more where they can hear you better. Okay. Well, we have been, for the last several weeks, building a playlist, Woe to You Religion, concerning Jesus' dressing down the leader of organized religion of his day. And that's kind of a downer in a way, because nobody likes to think about Jesus being so frank and so terse and so, judgmental. When you get right down to it, we just don't expect to see that, and the church hardly ever teaches any of that. And that's kind of an important thing. But his attitude toward religion was a very important part of the way to be. It was a very important part of what he was doing, because he said he came, according to the ancient writers, they say that he proclaimed that he came to set the captives free. Well, free from what? Well, I think religion. I think that's exactly what he came to set them free from, or that what he was doing to set them free from. I think he came from the same place as all of us do, his mom and his daddy. But that's a whole nother story. So tonight, we begin the way to be, and this is really the good news half of the way. The way to be, recovering from too much religion, is the name of the playlist. And this is the good news that Jesus reportedly taught, and it is the good news of Way to Be TV. I really enjoy this part. I really do. I've started on the scripts. As y'all know, I'm going home. I'll have a show next Thursday night, and then we'll have a recorded show the Thursday night after that, because I'll be home for a week celebrating Joni's birthday. And so I'll be writing scripts all week, because I won't have my equipment to be able to do videos that week, but or to do a broadcast. But I will write scripts ahead. Every day I'm determined to write at least one script, one whole script for a broadcast and for a video playlist series, so that and then I'll keep, of course, put out the newsletter and so forth. But I think that will help us maybe get ahead, and then I'll be able to maybe able to do some other things that I need to do, rather than having to work against deadlines every week real close. In the newsletter this week, if you got it, I ask you all to be thinking about the answer to a question. And I ask atheists quite often, and I've heard other people ask atheists on the shows that I watch on YouTube. They'll ask them the question, do you ever ponder the possibility of God? Because when you get right down to it, most human beings, I think it's a quite natural thing to do for all of us to ponder something that's greater than ourselves, a greater power than ourselves. Something is much bigger than ourselves. And some within religion think about that power creating the earth or creating human beings and being a creator. Some people have a worldview concerning that being as being someone who watches over us and loves us and tries to help us through life. Others have a worldview of someone who rewards us when we do well and punishes us when we do poorly. There's all kinds of worldviews concerning God. As a matter of fact, in seminary, there's one whole section of the Christian ethics class in which you study those worldviews about just how do you look at the idea of God. Well, atheists get asked all the time, do you ever ponder the possibility of God? And they're most of the more thinking atheists, the intelligent atheists, they will say, well, of course I do. I am saying that, the atheist says, I am saying that I don't believe in God, but I don't know for sure. And there could be a God. I'm not saying that there is no God or that I know there's no God. I'm just saying that in my life, I have not seen enough evidence to think and to become to believe that there is a God. And so that's the way the atheist looks at it. But when you turn it right back around, then the question I like to ask my Christian friends, because that's where I primarily operate, is among Christians, is it possible, and this was in the newsletter, is it possible that Jesus was a simple man with a well-articulated message about a better life, how to build a better life, without any supernatural element to him or to his wisdom? So, and that's hard for us to think about. We want the atheist to say to us, yes, I ponder God. Yes, I wonder if there's a God. Even though I don't believe there's a God, I have to wonder if there's a God. But I don't know that there's no God, but I have not come to believe there is a God. That's the atheist position. Most of the thinking kind of atheists, the atheists that have intelligence to realize it's nearly impossible to say I know for a fact anything about anything that's supernatural, and that's just the way it is. So, and if we ever discover a way through science to prove that there is a God there, if you want to call it God or theos, or just simply a higher power, something larger than ourselves, something bigger than us. If there's some way to prove that, then once we prove that, guess what? Now God becomes part of the natural world. Now God is part of natural science, because we're saying that if at that point that science has proven that this higher power is really there. And some people call it God, some people call it something else, but nonetheless, it now becomes part of the natural world because it no longer defies the laws of logic as it does now. It no longer works outside the boundaries of the natural laws of nature that science works by and tries to prove things by. But now, all of a sudden, it's part of our knowledge. Now, that's an interesting concept when you think about it. And I'm not saying that day could never come, because it could. It could. And it could not. But then when you get to the matter of Jesus, you start asking yourself, all right, is it possible that Jesus was a simple man with a well-articulated message about how to build a better life without any supernatural element to him or his wisdom? Now, if the atheist is willing to say, yes, I ponder a God, I wonder if there is a God, then why can't the Christian say, I ponder all of this stuff those ancient writers wrote long after Jesus died, explaining all this supernatural stuff. I wonder if it's true or if it's not. And I just think as human beings, we need to ponder and question when it comes to supernatural thoughts and beliefs on either side of the atheist or theist debate. And I know the church teaches us not to question, to be strong in your faith. You know, be strong in your, I've taught that, be strong in your faith. All right? But is it faith? Think about this for a minute and just really put your mind into this one, because this one's important. Is it faith if you're sure? If I know for a fact that those miracles are true, if I know for a fact that supernatural acts are true, if I know for a fact walking on water and making water into wine and raising someone from the dead and healing someone of leprosy or healing someone from being lame or blind or whatever, I know for a fact those things are true. Now, is there any faith if you're sure? Faith is the belief in something that you have not seen, Paul said, that you cannot sense with your five senses. So if you're sure, Is it faith? Think about that. So, have you ever thought, I'll say the question again, is it possible that Jesus was a simple man with a well-articulated message about a better life without any supernatural element to him or to his wisdom? Pretty interesting question when you think about it. So, I want you to be thinking about it. I want you, as I move through, I'm going to do and you guys have been so loyal and so helpful. I cannot tell you how much I enjoy having the chat room and people on it like this, because it changes the whole show. It changes everything. And if you weren't there, this would be very difficult to do. Now, what we hope to happen is we hope to incorporate Google Hangouts into this system. And when we do, I've already been talking to Jan and Mary about it, but when we do, you'll be able to log on in your home. You don't need any software or anything. Google Hangouts will install itself on your machine. I'll send you an invitation just like I do with the shows now, a link. You'll be able to go in, and if you've got a web camera on your desktop or a web camera on your laptop, you'll be able to log in, either a still image that you put there, or you can, if you want to leave the video on, actually see you moving and talking. And these little icons will line up along the bottom of the screen. I can take up to 10 of them. And when the 10 of y'all fill that screen, as long as you stay there, you'll be there. If you leave, someone else will take your place if they come along. But then when you talk, it senses you talking. And so when you begin to talk, it makes me small screen and makes you big screen. And then when you stop talking or someone else starts to talk and you let them talk, you go back down to the icons just like me, and that other person comes up full screen. And it's just about the neatest thing you ever saw. But what it means is that we can all see each other and openly talk to each other as if we were in a room together. And I'm excited about that idea. I'm very excited about that idea. And I hope maybe that's what happens. I hope maybe that's the way it comes out. Because it would be wonderful if we did that. So I want you to be thinking about that question. You've heard the announcements and all the contact information a million times. So ask yourself, is it possible that Jesus was a simple man with a well-articulated message about how to build a better life without any supernatural element to him or to his wisdom? Now, for some reason, he developed a following, and it's hard for me to believe that he developed that following by performing supernatural stunts. I think they followed his teaching. I don't think they followed the supernatural. I think they followed his teaching. I think he was good news. He did set them free. He came along and unburdened them from religion and told them that they could be within themselves content and at peace and be a person who was in charge of their own life. Now that's an interesting concept, and of course that's kind of what that's what I'm teaching at WAY2B TV. So let me do the welcome and contacts here as we move through this. As we move through the evening, we want your questions and comments. There are several ways to do this. First, callers can call 863-940-0047. Secondly, we have an active Twitter feed on screen throughout the broadcast. Just tweet hashtag WAY2BTV. We are in startup mode, so when Twitter is being used, we keep it on, and when no tweets are coming in, we keep it off. We see all the incoming tweets on our screen regardless, and we monitor it, and we turn it on if you begin to use Twitter. The chat room is open. Both Joni and I monitor the chat room, and she keeps me informed sometimes when I talk too much and run off like a freight train, and there's chats on there that I need to tend to. And so she'll keep me reminded that there's something there, and we won't skip you. We try to deal with every single chat that comes up. You can interact with us in between broadcasts by email at interact@way2b.org, and you can text the way to 228. Now, Amber, you just said on the chat room, I saw it go by in my right eye a while ago, you wanted to know how to get the newsletter. I believe I heard you say. So listen up, here it is. And you can text the way to 22828 to receive our newsletter each Thursday morning. The Way, THEWAY, and you text it to 22828. It's there on that little orange screen up there. Uh, right up, right up. That was this lamp. Right there. But anyway, I knocked the lamp crooked, didn't I? Okay. Any rate, 22828, the Way to 22828, and what we'll do, it will come back at you when you text that, and it'll say, what's your email address? And you'll put in your email address, and it will automatically sign you up for the newsletter, and you'll start receiving the newsletter from me on Thursday mornings at about 5 a.m. and also on Saturday mornings at about 5 a.m. All right, each newsletter will have a direct link to the broadcast. The newsletter also contains the discussion starter videos we will be using that same Thursday evening. Finally, to receive direct notices each time we upload, please subscribe to our WAY2B TV channel on YouTube. When you see the WAY2B TV logo in the bottom right-hand corner, that would be down there, in the bottom right, I got pointed at that right, in the bottom right-hand corner, you can click on it, and it will let you subscribe to the WAY2B TV channel directly. This would help us greatly. Your privileges on YouTube are measured largely by the number of subscribers you have. One of the things that excites me, and I know our viewership has not, increased like it should and so forth, or like I want it to, but it's only been 13 shows, so anybody should have patience with that. But here's one of the facts that you all might not know. Did you not know that we're within like 30 views of 2,000 views on our channel? We're within about 30 views of 2,000 views on our channel. So we are making some progress, and we are getting out there. And I think it's very important. Now, it may be our critics that are watching that. I don't know. I hope so, because they might just call on the phone. I'm really hoping that we will this will also begin to be a call-in show. I don't mind arguing with people, and I can hold my own. Those that attend the Sunday afternoon meeting know full well I can give as good as I get. I'm not belligerent. I try to be polite and nice to everyone. At the same time, my views are my views, just like your views are your views. And people ought to be able to talk to each other, especially if they have this way about them. They ought to be able to talk to each other and differ in what they have to say without getting all bent out of shape. You would think everybody would be able to do that, but not everybody can. So, Miss Joni.
Hello, you found me.
I did found you. There you are. So what do you think about my question? Is it possible that Jesus was a simple man with a well-articulated message about a better life, how to build a better life, without any supernatural element to him or to his wisdom? What do you think about that?
It's definitely possible. More than likely.
It seems more than likely.
Yeah.
I think they followed him for a reason. I think they followed him for a good reason. And that good reason was he was teaching them something that caused their lives to be simpler and less stressed, and that they could be more content.
And it was not something they were getting anywhere else.
No, they weren't. They were being told, you got to walk the walk and talk the talk. And Jesus was telling them the whole time, you got to manage your thoughts. You don't walk the walk and talk the talk, you manage your thoughts. And he went right through those woes that we've just been through and talked about the fact the scribes and Pharisees each time saying, you hypocrites, you're play actors, you hypocrites. And then he would go right down the line of all the stress that they were putting on the people. Now think about it. Now when you see those woes, you see the Sermon on the Mount, and you see his teachings on the kingdom of heaven, if indeed the ancient writers were accurate in what they wrote. And if you look at the Gospels and you see the embellishment occurring in one and not in the other, related to the violence and the threats and the supernatural afterlife and those kinds of things, but instead you begin to pick up on the fact there is a contiguous line of thought, and what he taught was about living the human life, not about life stinks, then you die and win the lottery. That was not Jesus. That whole scenario doesn't come up until the end of the first century in Revelations. And so at the time the Gospels were written, in which they talked about Jesus' figure of speech, the kingdom of heaven, no such concept existed. They were thinking of a kingdom on earth where they would be elevated to the rulers, their oppressors would become slaves and wind up sooner or later in life or at the end of life in Sheol, where they were on a bed of maggots covered by a blanket of worms. But Sheol was not necessarily a bad place. It was just a place where people went when they died, so to speak, or where their spirit existed, or something. But there was no concept of the streets of gold and the mansions and the pearly gates, or of hell and the devil and all that. All that stuff was not a part of their culture. So we're going to talk about all that tonight, and I'm going to do a little intro video with you this evening. A little video with you that's going to introduce the way to be. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about Jesus and about his place in history and about what was going on there, and then we're going to begin with the Beatitudes next Thursday night, and we're going to talk about the entry of the speech itself. And so this video will introduce what we're doing with this playlist, in essence. I begin with a few thoughts about Jesus, who he was and what he was doing. I call the video How to Build a Better Life. Was Jesus doing any more than telling the people of the way how they could get religion off their backs and how to be a blessed, content person at peace inside? Is that all Jesus was doing? I think maybe so. In this playlist, we're talking about a speech described by an ancient writer. The ancient speaker speaking this speech may have been a historical figure or an imagined character in the ancient writer's mind. Whichever he was, he became legendary, and he became the central figure of the Christian religion. The stories of this speaker's wisdom about life circulated throughout the first century. Many ancient writers wrote varying versions of the scuttlebutt that was going around. At the same time, there emerged many supernatural stories, as was the custom. The ancient writers wrote about these stories as well. Yes, you probably know who he is. He is known as Jesus, a name Christianity has made synonymous with wisdom and the virtues of goodness, otherwise known by religion as holiness. 2 millenniums have passed since the speaker reportedly spoke these words in Aramaic. The ancient reports of his words in Greek came decades after his death. The words read by the average English-speaking person today were not in print until printed in an ancient form of English more than 1,000 years later. Freedom of religion is in the United States Constitution. My fascination for this first century speech generated from a conclusion that the speaker, real or imaginary, did not teach freedom of religion, but freedom from religion. Arguably, the greatest influence on the world today is the Christian religion's adopted versions of their sacred book known as the Bible, and Christianity's insistence on a supernatural Jesus. Christians have taken from ancient writings what they will, including supernatural legends. To be clear and to be fair, I have taken from those writings what I will, excluding supernatural legends. It is remarkable that the great good that is touted by Christianity is largely a result of the natural wisdom of this speaker about life. At the same time, the supernatural beliefs of Christianity have generated horrible wars, pronouncements of ongoing eternal punishment upon millions, and the denial of rights through political influence by Christian politicians. Many of you may already know that I was a Christian pastor, serving 4 churches, now retired. My recovery from too much religion grew out of this speech, attributed to this well-known speaker. The Way to Be is the title I give the speaker's first century speech. I refer to the speaker as the speaker and sometimes as Jesus. I refer to his speech as the speech. Christianity refers to it as the Sermon on the Mount. I refer to those who reported the speaker's thoughts as ancient writers or journalists. They were anonymous writers to whom religion later ascribed names. The speaker expressed a contrast between 2 concepts. One is the concept I call the way to be. The other is the concept I refer to as religion. The speaker explores how to escape playing a religious role. Throughout the centuries, religion loaded liturgy and homilies with fragmented phrases of the speaker's words, often torn from their meanings. Religion uses his words to speak in buzzwords, Sunday school sound bites, and churchy cliches. Religion snatches incongruent clip art from the speaker's thoughts. My search, beginning with seminary, has been to find what may have been the contiguous line of thought of this ancient speaker, without the supernatural embellishment and without the clip art. Why is a contiguous line of thought so important? Searching for a contiguous line of thought helps us understand what the speaker said without building supernatural absolutes out of snippets. There were no printing presses, no Library of Congress, and no quotes carefully written down. We cannot quote the speaker today. The writing is available to us or from oral tradition I call scuttlebutt, written decades after the speaker's death. Does the speaker have a contiguous line of thought? Does his speech make sense? My position is that the speaker's line of thought is about how to build a better life. Contentment is the result of a way of being, not a way of doing or saying. He lays at religion's feet blame for the confusion over the difference. Furthermore, the speaker warned me not to reverse the process. Religion gets it backwards. Walking the walk and talking the talk will not replace managing one's thoughts. The speaker seems to have been brilliant. He reportedly developed a great following. Was this following the result of his wisdom or supernatural stunts? I think he rose above religious thought. This is why he made such an impression then, and why I spend so much time on his words thousands of years later. Those who followed the speaker became known as people belonging to the Way. He said he set them free. They were captives to religion. Those most devoted to religion were upset with him. He said they did what they did to be seen and heard. The religious practiced religion. As I move through the speech, I will keep the speaker's words, at least as the journalist reports them, together in an order. There are no omissions in the reported speech. Perhaps the journalist expressed only the cliff notes of the speaker's thoughts, the summary essence of what was going around, in whatever order, at whatever times, from whomever may have been listening to the scuttlebutt. In any case, the speaker appears to have a contiguous line of thought, one that lodged in his listeners' minds. The reported speech is short. I had the little man in my computer read the speaker's words to me aloud at a moderate pace. The length of the full recording is only 13 minutes and 15 seconds. We do well to remember that. As we move through the journalist account of this speech, I'll report where we are in time all along the way. The purpose of this is so that you might become aware that so much of religious dogma has been developed out of snippets of less than 30 seconds. Evaluate, if you will, from your own religious experience, religion's use or misuse of his few simple words. I have been a lifelong teacher of the Bible. Internalizing the ancient speaker's brief comments began my journey recovering from too much religion. I'm going to start at the top of these chats and work my way down. Amber is becoming one of my favorite people because her comment, I skipped by all the hellos to each other and got down to the important stuff. But Amber says, the hat looks good on you. Perfect, Amber. That's just perfect. I appreciate that very much. I'm glad somebody likes it. I happen to like the hat a lot. I wear it a lot down here. And Joni's gotten used to it. And I actually wore it to a picnic in Tennessee when I went home one time. Colleen said, I agree. I think that's referring to the hat. It's right below that, so I'm going to assume it is. And then Amber talked about how do you get the newsletter. And I hope you heard what I said a while ago. Just text 228, text to 22828 the way, and the constant contact will sign you right up. It'll ask you for your email when it texts you back, and which will be immediately. And then you'll be getting the newsletter on Thursdays and Saturdays like everyone else. Jan says, or Jan said, I'm sorry, I said your last name. I have to cut that out of the video. Jan said, no, I don't believe there is faith in something if you truly are sure of it. That's always been a problem to me in the church, teaching in the church, because people talk about faith. But then Christians, especially conservative Christians, people in the more conservative, more dogmatic denominations like Pentecostal and Baptist and Church of Christ and so forth, they're so dog sure. Well, if you're so dog sure, how is faith involved in that? I wonder very much, is there or isn't there something greater than myself? Is there not some power that created this world and this life? But is it an entity? Is it human-like? Is it, does it have an identity? Is it something that thinks and has a mind? Or just exactly, who knows what, you know what I mean? But when
I feel very vulnerable. And I think that my question is not, is there something that is bigger than me, but is there something bigger than all that other stuff out there that's bigger than me? Something that's bigger than the government, something that's bigger than the world, something that's, I don't know, more in charge, but at least keeping the axis moving on the earth or whatever. So that's probably science. I don't know, but I have attributed that to God.
Yeah. And so there's nothing wrong with the thought at all, but the idea then that human beings would somehow manipulate that God, and that some human beings have found a way to make that God like them more than other people, and that they get favored. You've ever heard a TV evangelist say that
or that they think they do.
Get out your credit card and call this number. And the result, in one form or fashion, they will tell you the result will be you will wind up earning God's favor. Now those words, God's favor. In other words, you'll be blessed. And I can promise you, the beginning on the Sermon on the Mount is not going to tell us that. He's going to say, blessed are, blessed are, blessed are, blessed are, blessed are in the Beatitudes, but it ain't going to have nothing to do with your credit card, and it ain't going to have nothing to do with sending money into some evangelist. It's going to have to be with the way. It's going to have to do with the way you are inside. And so, I think if anything, Jesus became very popular, and a bunch of ancient writers abused that popularity. They stole his popularity in essence, and took advantage of it, and used it because they could see that the movement was bigger than killing Jesus, and so somebody had to do something with it, and off they went. That's just how it seems to me. But at any rate, let's see here. Colleen says, faith, as I've been taught, is, as you said, a belief when no proof is given. And of course, that's what Paul writes too. The self-appointed Apostle Paul, the so-named Apostle Paul, because no one knows about his conversion but him. He's the one that tells the story, and it even says in the scripture that no one else around him saw a thing. But he talks about, faith is the things hoped for that cannot be seen, that cannot be proven, or whatever. That's one of the reasons why I get frustrated with atheism when it tries to force Christianity in this country to prove to them through the natural sciences that God exists. Well, if God is supernatural, that is beyond nature, then how are you going to prove his existence via the laws of nature? You're not. It's faith. That's it. And those people who have that faith don't need to be ridiculed. People who have that faith have a right to have that faith, just as the atheist says, I don't have that faith. That's fine. But the person who has the faith has as much right to have the faith as the atheist has the right to not have it. where we get into the problem in this country, where we get into trouble in this country, is when we take that and the Christian religion takes that, and affluent, wealthy, powerful people in the Christian religion either get elected or support people to get elected, and our Congress gets filled with Christian congressmen, and our state legislatures get full of Christian legislators, and our city governments get full of Christian city councilmen, and all of a sudden city ordinances and county ordinances and state laws and federal laws become full of an opinion of what is and is not fair, related to civil rights and to human rights and to punishment and reward of people and of our care of people based upon their own worldview of Christianity. So that's called a theocracy. We say in this country all the time that Islam, that in the Middle East there's a theocracy named Islam, and that's wrong, and it shouldn't be that way. And that in many countries there's a theocracy. You know, in some ways, I heard a telephone call the other day into a show that said, in my country, she was calling from Ireland, and she said, in my country, I'm not allowed to say I'm an atheist because I have to say I'm a non-Catholic. But I can't say I'm an atheist because I'll get in trouble with the government for doing that. Well, you know, that's called a theocracy. People should not live in a theocracy. We say we have here freedom of religion. I say Jesus was teaching freedom from religion. But we say here we have freedom of religion, but do we? If 80% of the U.S. population identifies, according to Gallup poll, with some form of Christian religion, and our halls of Congress and our legislators, our legislation halls in the states, and our city council rooms, and our all of our local and federal and state governments are full of people who have at least the ones that have power, a slant on how things should be, but it's based on what they do on Sunday. It's based on that view of their theology, and so that makes the United States of America a theocracy if we don't watch it. And so I think that's important. Amber says, if I spent time thinking about Jesus, I would think of him exactly like that. Colleen said, let's see here. Shouldn't have used my scroll wheel. It jumped too far. Colleen says, I agree his teaching is down to earth, a pragmatic approach to being content without striving for wealth and prominence. Not just for not striving for wealth or prominence, but without striving to please, striving to try to. It's almost like for religion, the way religion uses God, the idea of God, is like, especially in the more conservative, and I grew up as Southern Baptist, so that's conservative enough. As God is treated almost like some petulant child that is going to throw a bloody fit unless you handle them just right. Okay? And anybody that's been a parent knows what I'm talking about. Just almost like the religion is there as a purveyor of how to handle God. Does that make sense? You know,
yeah.
How do we handle God? Here's how we handle God. You know, if you do this, you'll never have the correct spiritual life unless you give God his part. And his part is 10% of your paycheck, and it's deposited right here at the First Baptist Church of Podunk, you know? I mean, that's how it's looked at. And so religion kind of uses and abuses God, I would say, in a way. And so I'm wondering if for the sake of religion, the same exact thing happened to Jesus. you know, I heard somebody refer to Jesus' crucifixion as suicide by cop. That he irritated him enough for 3 years that the religious leaders, powers that be, convinced the Roman government, powers that be, to deal with him. And the result was he was killed. Well, then after he was killed, maybe the memory of him and the popularity of him and the scuttlebutt that was going around about him simply built this thing we call Christianity, this idea, and then it has flourished. And by the time it became, at first it was persecuted, but by the time it became the official religion of the Roman Empire, when that happened, Constantine and all of the ceremonial stuff and all this stuff that we do in church today is a mixture of government and Christianity, is the way that came about. And all of the pomp and circumstance that we go through now every 7 days on Sunday morning is largely about that struggle between government and Christianity. So, and what happened as a result of Constantine deciding that Christianity was going to be the official government? Colleen says, I was reading more about Taoism. I assume that's what you're talking about there, because that's how it's spelled. She spelled it with a T. Hardly anybody knows how to spell it, so you must be reading about it. I was reading about Taoism, which he followed, and found that we both found the way. Yeah, I play bridge in the afternoon on Tuesdays and Fridays. I have an 85-year-old partner here in Lakeland, and I have another one up around 70, late 70s, early 80s, in Winter Haven that I play at a club up there. And there's a book out called Taoism for Bridge, and it's sort of a Taoistic approach to the game of bridge, how to think about bridge and how to enjoy bridge and not be so uptight about it, because bridge is not the kind they play in the parks and the 55 plus clubs, but this is international duplicate bridge in which you can come home and pull down every hand you played that day and compare yourself with every other person, sometimes all over the world. Later on this month we're having a tournament in which the entire state of Florida, every person sitting at every bridge table will be playing exactly the same hands. And you'll be ranked in the state of Florida and earn master points based on how well you did with the overall players in the whole state, which is pretty interesting. But it's like chess for cards. It's got the mindset of playing chess, only for cards. And but yeah, there's a mindset that goes with it. And Taoism is definitely got a mindset. And it's a good mindset, by the way. I think Colleen's right. She talked about the other week about listening to the Dalai Lama and following the Dalai Lama. Without question, Jesus is not the only teacher out there. He's not the only one that's come along. Some have come along since him. Some came along before him. But that's not the point. The important thing about the WAY2B, and we got about 10 more minutes, but the most important thing about the way that there is that we're not trying to prove it 2,000 years ago. We're trying to prove it in the 21st century. We're trying to prove it in August of 2015. We're saying to ourselves, if we practice the way, if we internalize the way as a part of our lives, we're asking ourselves the question, will it make us more at peace? Will it make us more content? And then we don't have to worry about all this old superficial stuff and all this supernatural thoughts. Instead, we can simply practice what Jesus taught and see if it works. And if it does, we've confirmed it now. That's what's important about the way. And it's not something that you prove in ancient literature. It's something that you can pick up throughout the writings of the ages and throughout the great teachers of the ages. There have been so many attempts to tell other human beings that you can be content, that happiness is a choice, that it's up to you. if you want to live a decent life, no matter what you've had to go through, no matter what kind of pressures have been on you, no matter how much other people have gotten in your face, and no matter how offended you have been at times in life, or how low you have felt and how worthless you have felt, you can be a person who decides every morning when you get up, this is a good day and this is my day, and nobody's going to make me somebody I'm not. You can get in my face, but I'm going to remain the person I am. My visceral response to you is going to show what is inside of me. And that's, to me, that's the most important part of the way, and that's why I love teaching it so much. It's just almost, to me, the most important thing around. Colleen says, when he says, and that is what the way of the path, I found that interesting. I was reading more about the Taoism, which he followed and found that we both found the way. And she said that I'm referring to as my son David. Amber said, I think Jesus, I think Jesus, his image was warped over time. Yeah, and that's what I was saying. I think Jesus was, it was almost like Jesus, if Jesus was a real person, he got made into a fictional character. You get my point? If he was a real person, he got made into a fictional character. I think he was a real person. Most theological scholars, most people who've studied Greek and Hebrew and have given it thought and made a life out of it, believe that Jesus actually lived. Even atheists teach that most atheists will teach most likely Jesus lived. The intelligent ones that you listen to. There's some out there trying to prove that he's a mythological figure that was made up. But even if he is, if you can learn from Atticus Finch in To Kill a Mockingbird, or you can learn from Forrest Gump, or you can learn from The Godfather, or you can learn from the Jersey Boys, or whoever. If you can learn from any fictional character, and we learn the lessons of life from fictional characters that come out of the wisdom of all these teachers that have come along through the ages. By the way, that's where those scripts come from. If we can learn from them, then we can learn from Jesus, even if he was a fictional character. I don't happen to believe that he was, but I think we can learn. The point is, what we're trying to learn is the way. We're not trying to learn how to be Jesus' best buddy. We're not trying to learn how to have absolute faith in Jesus. We're not trying to learn how to manipulate Jesus or to move him to help us manipulate life. What we're saying is, he came along, he taught something, and that what he taught is still valuable and can be put to work if you want to, right now in 2015. And so it's proven now. It's not proven 2,000 years ago. It's proven now. So anyway, let me go on down this list because we're about to run out of time. This has been the quickest one we've done.
You ready for Jan?
Okay, I got to be sure where I'm at. I believe in self-improvement on a daily basis and being a good person to others and to the earth. At the end of the day, this is Amber, and personally, I don't identify with Jesus. Amber says pronounced Taoism, spelled Taoism. Right, that's exactly right.
Go back. Jan's asked you a question.
So would you say, Jan asked, so would you say you have faith in Jesus' teachings? I think that's a fair assumption. Yeah, that's a fair assumption. Although there's a difference in that kind of faith because it's not blind faith. It's not like I've got faith that if I go through certain motions and certain things that God is going to favor me. That's not that kind of faith. The kind of faith it is that, I used to be one way, and the more I practice this way, it seems like the easier life is to live. And so there's some proof in this one. This is a kind of faith that you can practice, and you can say to yourself, if I just have faith that if I don't respond in kind, that I am humble, that my approach to people is gentle, that I do want peace between every two persons, and so forth, that I have a charitable mind, that those things will not lead to me losing. It may look like I lose sometimes, but the point is, my life is not damaged by those things. My life is enhanced by those things. And I think that's probably where we need to go. And that gives me the faith that I can live that way. And even though the particulars of the day are difficult, I've decided beforehand who I am and how I'm going to respond to life. Say what, Joni?
Amber asked you a question too. What would freedom of religion look like to you?
And I don't see where that one is.
It's below. It was prior to.
Oh my gosh, there's so many of them on here, y'all. Y'all are doing a great job. We got like 5 minutes. Read her question to me, Joni.
What would freedom of religion look like to you? And you said repeatedly freedom from religion. She's saying, what would freedom of religion look like to you?
Well, freedom of religion to me looks just like it looks now, except it doesn't do one thing. Freedom of religion means that every single person in this country has the right to believe what they want to believe. They have a right to practice whatever kind of religion in concurrence with, in assembly with other people. They allow for that religion to be formed and shaped in any way they choose. Now, what it doesn't mean is that I can take my religion and I can force it to become yours, or that you have to adopt certain pieces and parts of my religion in order to live in the same country with me. Now, there's a difference, isn't there?
Which is more what reality is in the United States than the other.
Yes. I think that's what the Founding Fathers, because the Founding Fathers, if you start looking at all the different characters that were part of our early leaders, they were a hodgepodge of people with all kinds of beliefs, very differing opinions on many, many things. And freedom of religion, I think, came out of that fact. That we can all do what we do and have intelligent discussions and lead a country that gets to be itself.
We don't do it very smoothly anymore, though.
No, we don't, because right now, I think the organization of the Christian religion in particular, and the amount that it dabbles in government affairs causes us to begin to have a theocracy. I do. Let's see. Amber said, someone finally said it. Jesus is not the only teacher. Thank you. I'm tired of being looked at with such disdain because I do not follow Jesus. I think you have faith, Mom. I just think you're questioning it, which is not always a bad thing. Colleen says, I think I do have faith, just a bit battered by church and I think did you mean cooperation or corporation? Colleen says, we have been given working, thinking minds, and to question following blindly is to question. Following blindly is a good thing. It shows we think things over. At least I hope so. And yeah, we should be able to think for ourselves, and we should be able. I mean, even somebody brought this up the other day in a meeting. I forget who it was now, but they said, I follow you. I said, please don't do that. Please don't do that. Please think through things for yourself. Come up with what you believe to be what you need to think and how you need to believe and what you need to adopt into your mind and internalize in such a way that it becomes part of your life. You decide. And I say the way can stand on its own. I think there'll be people who try the way and maybe they would wind up saying, it don't work for me. I try to be kind and all I get is messed on. I try to be gentle with people and all I get is yelled at and so forth. Well, still it's your attitude toward the yelling. People yell at me. People criticize me. People use sarcasm on me.
And it doesn't feel good.
Right. But at some point you have to say to yourself, who's in charge of this day? That knothead or me? My life is in charge. I'm in charge of it. Right? I get to decide whether or not that's going to affect me that way. And so I think that's the big deal. I think that's important. I cannot believe where we're at. So it is the closing time. It's time to go. So don't forget, thumbs up if you like the show. Thumbs down if for some reason you don't like it, but can't imagine why. Share, subscribe, use social media, post, and I'll see you soon. I'll see you next week.
Bye.